Welcome everybody to Conservation Conversations Season 4. This is the first episode of a new season, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by a very special guest who you'll be seeing more of in the world of Stornoway in the next few months. Just before I get there, let me tell you about what we've been up to. So earlier this month, you've seen the Honey Eaters song released, which is our collaboration with Ladysmith Black Mambazo. If anyone went to see them at the Royal Albert Hall recently, message us, tell us how you enjoyed the show. It was really like a full circle dream experience getting to see them on that stage only a few months after we ourselves had played on that stage, and say hi to them, having hung out back in May this year and made that record together, which you've now heard. And thanks so much for all the kind words about Honey Eaters song. It's this song that kind of encapsulates what Beyonder, the new album, is all about, because it's specifically directly talking about a species that is under massive threat. It's an Australian bird that isn't going to be around much longer if things carry on as they are. It mentions fire and things being on flame, which is depressingly where we are at the moment. But Stornoway's always tried to address these kind of grim situations out there in the environment, in the conservation world, by injecting a bit of hope. And actually, we've got a lot in common on that theme with today's Conservation Conversation guest. So without further delay, I'd like to welcome you all to this session and introduce you to one of the artists who has most inspired me personally and the band for the past couple of years since we saw her set in Bristol back in, must have been 2024. And here is the wonderful Alice Boyd. Hey Alice, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm really glad to have you joining us, and I'm so excited that we're going to be touring together in October, November.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting because I understand you've been working even more on the set that we already saw from you back in May when you supported us at the Norwich and Norfolk Festival.
Yeah.
Can you say anything about what people can expect if they come along and see you?
Yeah, so I've been developing a solo set, which will also be developed into my debut album, which I'm going to be releasing next April, April 2027. And it explores a project that I worked on a couple of years ago, which was a documentary for BBC Radio 4 called Shifting Soundscapes, where I'd met someone called Martin Stewart, who's this amazing field recordist, sound recordist, who's dedicated his whole career to traveling around the world, collecting the sounds of nature. And he's now in his 70s. And I went to him with the idea of what if I was to go back to the places he'd recorded in 50 years ago to see how those soundscapes had changed in those locations. And it was quite a sobering project because it was the first time, even though going to those places and there's still birdsong there, in the moment I was like, oh, there's still a lot going on. But then hearing those soundscapes side by side and seeing just how much it's changed in the last 50 years it was quite shocking both for me and for Martin. And there was one particular location which was really close to his heart, near where he grew up, and I think for him hearing that difference was it was a shock. But so my solo show, it sort of takes the audience, what I'll be doing the set before your show, it'll take the audience on a journey both through my journey through field recording and getting interested in collecting nature sounds, and also meeting Martin and the comparisons, but also landing in a space of hope at the end. And that's the bit I've been developing since, is how to talk about the things that are really hard, but also leave audiences feeling hopeful and hopefully being able to be part of the conversation around that.
Yeah, that's so important. And especially this summer, 50 years to the year since one of the most infamous heat waves that Britain experienced in 1976.
Yeah.
50 years later, things are hotter and worse in some ways, and ecological damage is right there on the doorstep for everybody. So we're starting to wake up and maybe do something about it. But one thing that I want to ask you, whether you ever worry about this in the music making that you do, and because I do worry about this in what we do, about whether there's a risk and a tension in making ecological damage into something beautiful, and whether when we talk about these issues in a kind of aesthetic way, it does more to kind of anesthetize people, and they can sort of listen to a song and pass the time rather than mobilize them.
Yeah,
This is what are the best way to mobilize people as well as
yeah.
describe what's going on?
Yeah, I think it's such a hard one, and it's a question that I've battled with a lot over my career so far. Is I started off working in an environmental charity and then decided to move into the arts and focus on the environment through, to begin with, theatre and then music and also the sound projects I do. And yeah, it's been a huge question along the way for me of, is what I'm doing having an impact? Like, is it, what role does the arts have in talking about these things? And, um, and yeah, how effective is it? And I think I've kind of come to the conclusion, and still probably working on that conclusion, but I think within any movement and in any effort or campaign, there are so many different roles that people can have. So you can have the person who's the activist and is going on all the marches. And at a point in my life, that was me. And I've not been on many of the marches recently. But then there's role for people working in policy. There's roles for people working in the arts. There's role for people working in any single industry. And if they're thinking about the environment, then that can be their place to talk about it and to make an impact. And I think, I don't think there's one right way to do it. And I think it's definitely good to be aware of it and be self-aware. And I think sometimes, I know, like, some of the criticisms around art, around nature, is that sometimes it can be overly earnest, or it can be maybe, it's only talking about the beauty. But then I think the thing I'm always trying to balance in my work is the balance between the beauty and trying to communicate that, and how kind of charming the natural world can be, and how it can be so lovely being in it, but also the reality, and also our role both as part of nature and also as disruptors in whatever space we're in. We're always having a disruptive effect, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. So yeah, whatever we do, we're having an impact, we're doing something.
Yeah, and that's where rewilding is such an interesting topic, because we need to involve ourselves in a positive, helpful way with habitat management, but not let things just become totally rewilded, because then it would just be brambles and deer and nothing else.
Yeah.
And I know you've worked with Knepp Wildland as one example of a rewilding project that's really succeeding, and like the stork that's been thriving there. And the nightingales are doing pretty well there. We did our nightingale walk back in April. But yeah, perhaps we can tie rewilding and the habitat management and natural spaces into the next question. So this is one I put to all my guests, which is whether there's a place out there where you've performed or done a bit of writing or just been to see some music, but what's a location that invites nature to be part of the music making experience. So that's addressing conservation in the environmental sense.
Yeah. One place I've done quite a few gigs at now, and so at various points I've done an album or EP launch, or sometimes workshops, is Brockwell Park Greenhouses. And it's a community space in Brockwell Park near Brixton in London. And it's just a beautiful space, because it's a fairly small site where they've got vegetable patches, they've got greenhouses, and they've also got this sort of workshop space slash gig space where they put on concert series, gig series, and they also put on all sorts of community workshops. And I think, for me, that's been quite a special place to go back to and test new ideas. And I tested an early version of my solo show there, and it has a very dedicated local audience as well as local team of volunteers. So you get for one gig maybe 12 volunteers making food for everyone, and it's such a lovely space, and I think is a great example of how it doesn't, you can have a relatively small place in a city, but it draws so many people to it and builds community around it, and those repeat audiences coming back to hear new ideas from different people. So I'd say that's one location. And then perhaps on the other end of the scale, one of my first projects as a freelance musician was at the Eden Project and in their rainforest biome. So the Eden Project in Cornwall, where they have these huge biomes they have the tropical biome, and they have the Mediterranean biome full of all of these plants. And I performed my first EP there with me and 5 other singers. And I think to be in that space, and we had ants crawling up our microphones and things like that. And yeah, it was quite amazing to be in a space that is usually it was during one of the lockdowns, I believe, or around a lockdown, so it was closed to the public. And yeah, to be in that space as a small group with also the tech people around us was incredible.
Yeah, I think if anybody out there has not heard of the Eden Project and has not been there, the Eden Project is one of the most inspiring and high impact places for biodiversity education and conservation. It's just this really beautiful, quite daunting architecturally space that divides the landscape into these biomes, and gives you the experience of what it would be like to go and sit in the desert for a few hours or into a tropical rainforest. And it's so affirming to hear that they occasionally bring music in to be part of that educational experience for people. I'm really excited to hear that you played there.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll do more music there.
Yeah.
The other adventure I know you went on, which I really enjoyed listening to the record that came out of that, was the Cloud Walking
Yes.
EP. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about the Cairngorms and what it was like to go there.
Yeah, so my second EP, Cloud Walking, was inspired by a trip I took to the Cairngorm Mountains in Scotland. And it was a group of me and 8 other women, and organized by some young female mountain leaders, where we basically went on this 4-day sort of mini expedition up through the mountains and camping along the way. And it was kind of half and half in terms of creative team and participants, and everyone was from very different parts of the country and different kinds of careers. On the walk there were 2 filmmakers, Michelle Sanders and Emily Baker, and they were documenting our journey, and I was documenting it through sound. So I was collecting field recordings along the way with the view to turn it into an EP, and also for that music to be the soundtrack to the movie that Emily and Michelle were making. But yeah, it was an incredible trip and quite, I think, humbling, because I think it's really easy when you live in quite a flat landscape to forget how brutal that sometimes the outdoors can be. So there was one part of the trip which I think got almost a little bit dangerous, where we'd climbed up to the plateau and the temperatures were dropping and dropping. We were getting this rain that was turning into like ice, and we were camping quite near the top. And I think there was a moment where all of us probably wanted to go home, I think, and some people's sleeping bags were getting wet and things like that. But thankfully everyone was okay and it all went to plan, and we went down the mountain the next day and the sun came out, and that inspired my song "Oh the Sun," which was kind of the relief after the storm and the feeling of the heat. We were all drying our tents out on the heather in the heat. And yeah, it was a really lovely experience to create a collection of songs based so specifically on an experience and on a landscape. And yeah, also very saddening that the Cairngorms has been on fire. And yeah, it just makes you realize how precious these landscapes are. And how we have to change and we have to learn how to adapt to what might come in the future so that these spaces are okay.
Exactly. Yeah, I think one of the things that I did as soon as I heard about what was happening in the Cairngorms recently was go back and listen to your really wonderful album or EP there, and I can just really strongly recommend that to anyone. The tracks, so "Oh the Sun," which is track 3 that you mentioned, "The Mountain," "Little River," "Heart 2," and "In the Rain" especially is just such a kind of adventure through the landscape there, and you've got your soundscapes in, as always, mixed in with the wonderful songwriting. So if anyone, I actually have my copy up here on vinyl somewhere.
Well, I have to thank my collaborators on that, because I really brought on a group of musicians who a mix of friends and also a family member, my aunt Amy on the saxophone, and just over a series of weeks I slowly brought people in to record. There's Rachel Kitchley on the harp in the first, or in a few of the tracks, but you can really hear it in "The Mountain," and my friend Jacob Norris, who's been a long time collaborator, and just a whole host of people who it was so fun having just that group of people who I really loved come and make what was in my head a reality. Yeah.
Wonderful. So everyone, if you want to get a taste for what to expect from Alice's support slot on the tour, go and check out Shifting Soundscapes on BBC Radio 4 and read up about the folks we've been mentioning here, and then definitely take a listen to the Cloudwalking EP. I know you said the set won't necessarily be very strongly tied to that era, but it gives a really good maybe warm up or framing for people to be introduced to your voice and the kinds of things you write about. And then on the note of songwriting and crafting music, I wanted to talk to you about the conservation of tradition, whether that's musical tradition or something else. But we've talked about conservation of ecology. And now, what does the conservation of music mean to you? Is there perhaps an example of a piece of music for you that takes that old approach of doing things, or an old folk song, and then weaves in some new innovation? And Heart and Heart 2 might be an interesting example you could talk to here, but the floor is yours.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about this before, and I suppose one thing I really love about folk music, and I'm really drawn to musicians like Nick Drake and Sybil Bayer, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, but I love that feeling that sometimes on their albums where you feel almost like you're sitting in the living room listening to them play in the corner. And I think particularly those qualities of when they've been recorded on tape, or they just has this really warm, homely feel to it. And I think there are a few musicians whose music I really love who are definitely evoking that feeling. And two of them are Natalie Wildgoose, who she's just a fantastic musician, and she has a song called "Come Into the Garden," which I have genuinely listened to. This doesn't happen often, but I was listening to it walking down the street and just started tearing up, and I was going, oh my gosh. And I had to text her. I said, Natalie, that your song just made me cry. Like, this is such a beautiful, her voice just is completely timeless, and she records on tape, and she's just released an EP. It's called, I've written it down, it's called Rural Hours, and I'm yet to listen through all of it, but it's again that same feeling. And I know I believe she recorded it in North Yorkshire, where she's from. And then the other artist is someone called Hannah Stretton, and she also uses tape and builds up her voice in these beautiful harmonies, and often brings in field recordings. And yeah, again, just gives me that same feeling that it's one of the feelings that I look for in music. And it reminds me of one of my favorite albums is Nick Drake's Family Tree, which was, I believe, released after his death, and was a compilation of sort of demo tape recordings, some recordings of him playing with his sister, a recording from his mum. And yeah, again, feels like that you're sitting in on this family's experience, or one of them just playing along on the piano. And yeah, I really love that feeling where yeah, that timeless quality.
Yeah, that's a really interesting couple of examples, because you're conserving the place, the practice, and the person, and kind of almost inhabiting that moment back in time where the original piece inspired what we can listen to today.
Yeah, and I believe Hannah Stretton, so her album, her debut album, Soon, I believe she made that during the wildfires in Australia, and she was staying on a farm. I think it was her grandmother's farm, and was sort of witnessing this fire in the distance. And I think, again, I don't know how much she talks about it within the album, like how much it comes through in her lyrics. Her lyrics are often quite indiscernible, so you can't really hear exactly what she's saying. But yeah, I sort of feel like just knowing that piece of information then makes you go, oh, I'm listening to this album in a completely different way, and is so tied in with that particular location.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, and we've gone on a lot of topics here and looked back at the past quite a lot, but as well as looking forward to the future in the tone of hope, which is what Stornoway has been trying to do with the Honey Eaters song. And I know you, as you said at the beginning, like to do. But I just take us back 50 years one more time, because coincidentally, the mid 70s, when that heat wave happened, was also when they reintroduced the white-tailed eagle. And I wanted to give you a moment to talk about your song, which commemorates those 50 years. So your song about the white-tailed eagle, do you want to tell people about how that came about? And
Yeah, so that was a project with the RSPB, the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, and they last year were celebrating 50 years since the return of the white-tailed eagle to the UK by creating a film about it. And they asked me, as part of the film, both to go and try and record the eagle, and also to make a piece of music that sort of evoked the eagle. And the white-tailed eagle is the UK's largest bird of prey. So I believe it has a wingspan of 2.6 meters, so it's massive. And I was very lucky to have the opportunity to go and see one from afar. Like, it was very far away, but even so, it just sort of looked like it looks like a kind of a hooded figure sitting in a tree. And it was incredible. And I was sitting there for maybe 6 hours waiting for it to call. And then the film team and I were having a conversation around hour 5 or so. And so I decided to press stop on the record. And of course, that was the moment when it called. And I was like, no, I can't believe it. Press record again. And we waited for maybe another hour or two, and it didn't call again. But I think that was a good lesson in, you can't control nature. And particularly, I think with field recording and that practice is really, I've had to learn patience with it, because as soon as you sort of will a sound, it just won't happen. It's like watching the kettle boil.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I made this song called Return of the White-tailed Eagle. And for me, it was just really trying to capture this, I suppose, both the majesty of that bird, but also the fragility of it. And there's a lyric that goes, watch me fall into nothing and arise again. And it's kind of, that lyric was trying to bring across the feeling of both it kind of soaring through the air, but also this idea that as a species, it can, if we treat it incorrectly, it can kind of plummet into extinction. But on this occasion, we were able to bring it back.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good note on which to end, with hope in our hearts and positivity, and these stories of recovery and reintroduction.
Yeah.
So thank you for,
thank you very much. Thank you.
So everybody, go and check out Alice's music, and especially her soundscapes as well, because you'll be hearing a blend of those two things when she supports Stornoway on tour, starting with Portsmouth on the 24th of October, I believe, and ending in February at the O2 Shepherd's Bush Empire in London. So quite a number of dates there, and we're really thrilled to have you on board.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much.
Anything else you'd like to share with anyone? New releases coming up, or
I have a newsletter, so if people are interested in regular updates, because I've got a few bits of music coming out before the album, just here and there. And anything else? It depends when this comes out. I'm doing a BBC prom on the 27th of August. So on the Thursday, 27th of August. And that's at the Royal Albert Hall, and will also be on Radio 3. So it's the Ultimate Calm Prom at 10:15. And it'll be available to listen after, but I'll be doing some soundscapes alongside the amazing lineup there. And also I'll be performing one song, which is my song Symbiosis. So I'm very excited about that. And it's going to be quite a big moment.
Brilliant. Hope you have a really good time there. And yeah, I can vouch for the Substack tour diary there. So everyone go sign up to that and you won't be disappointed. It's really just beautiful writing from Alice and really thoughtful reflections around what it's like to be a musician in this world that's such an exciting and difficult place emotionally, with all the changes that we're seeing in the environment. So, but thanks for your writing, and I hope many more people get to experience it.
Thank you very much, Ollie.
Pleasure to talk to you today.
Yeah, you too. Bye.